Welcome back, everybody, on this fine summer's day. So, I got something to show you. It's probably going to take a while, but I'm going to split it up into 4 stages. So, in the first stage, we're going to animate using mimic motion. In the second stage, we're going to swap the faces using face swap. In the third stage, you have the option of using live portrait with a still. And I'm going to go over that because we did try it with video, but it's bad. So it actually looked better with just the face swap. So that's cool. And then I'd like to introduce this new collection, which is called RotoMaker, which is basically like a combination of a bunch of workflows I've already released. So if you haven't got them, you can go back to those videos to learn how to install them, because we've already done videos on how to install live portrait, how to install mimic motion. And then basically the Roto pack is just giving you some video joining and some rotoscoping using matting nodes. All right. So it's going to expand, but this is the first release and it's going to be a start to finish again. So we're going to be using some assets that you might have seen before in previous videos. So let's just jump into the first workflow. So this one is stage 1. As you can see with stage 1, this is the Loki mimic motion, which has been modified. So what I've done is I've changed it so that it'll now take load video path, so you don't get the out of memory for big videos. And then we've put that to, I think it's just me walking around on camera. So it's not been filmed like in a studio or anything. It's just literally me walking around on camera. Okay. And what that has done is it has given me the same sort of open pose, which I would normally get with my avatar. Okay. So it's taken the video input and created this open pose. And then I get one of my generated, just a generated image of a person, right? And my intention is to animate this with my movements, with mimic motion, right? So not dancing, just standing and talking on the screen. As you can see, it is picking up the mouth movements pretty good, actually. So we might, well, as I found, you don't need live portrait to make it talk. If you want to do talking and moving, you're better off just using mimic motion. All right. So I've done a few things to make changes here. So the first one is I changed the setup of, there's a different resize node here now, because we want fill crop. Otherwise, it'll stretch the open pose and you get really weird generations. A couple of other things. I forced the rate of 30 FPS on all the nodes in all the workflows so that it's consistent. On my 4090, I was able to do 150 frames every batch, but you might turn this down or go to 768. But I think you get better generations at 1024. So try doing less frames. So obviously you would start at 0. And the one thing I did differently was I did prepare a square crop of my video because it was shot in 16:9, and I made sure I was in the middle of the screen. So that meant that my height was what was maxing out the frame when you make it square. Yeah. And so then you end up with a nice, it does still crop it a bit because it was full body and you can't see his feet. So it does sort of crop. I think that's a feature of what this is. So I know I've said fill crop, but it should be already 1024. So it's kind of upscaled it a bit. Anyway. So if we just move on, because I don't want to spend too long on this, this is the exact same setup as before. And then what I've done is I've made an optional matting output. So, you know, if you want to get the matting at this point, you can get the matting at this point, and it'll cook it to an MP4, which is just gray, and that makes it easier later on. But I decided to just go with this because, as you can see, it's not too bad. Right now, the face is terrible, but we're going to fix that in the next step. The point is, the mouth movement is there, the body movement is there. And what I've done here is I've done 150, and then I've rendered another 150 like that. So that's 2 queued, yeah? That's a total of 300 frames. So then what we do, of course, is we have to join the videos. Now, you could use any application to join your outputted videos, okay? Because you're going to get this MP4 saved, right? And it's going to save it to a specific place as well. So let's just go over that real quick, because what I've done is I've tried to make it really easy. If we just go to, there we go. So this is an example of chain 5. Every workflow has a project name. if you use the same project name, the files will all output to the same place in your output folder. So that's the reason for this. So make sure every time you do a new run, you change the number, and then it won't get all mixed up. Easy to find later. So stage 1 is going to produce 2 videos, right? Mimic 1 and Mimic 2, right? So then I'm going to go to the stage 4, which is the Roto workflow, Roto Basic. Roto Basic contains an image sequence mode where you can have a sequence of many images, and then it's going to process one for each queue. So then all you do is you just say you have 1,000 images in the folder, you just set it to 0, queue 1,000, and walk away. And it's going to run through this. But really, I've done this so that you can test one frame. Now, I realize that what I'm trying to do with this workflow is make it all video to video. So you don't have to mess around with image sequences and messing around. Like I said, it's a lot of messing around. There is a slow mode, okay, which does save all the image sequences for the source or the matte. And wait, is that both matted? I think one of them is matted, and then one of them gives you some mask controls. Okay. So you can obviously just disable these if you don't want them. But the point is there's like options for messing around with the mask. I think I've done that here. I'm not sure. I think this one is mask threshold, which it reduces the amount of stuff that's popping in the background. That's what I was experimenting with. Okay. And what have we got on? 51. Yeah. Okay. But this, like I said, we're going to come back to this later. So I don't want to get ahead of myself. What we're going to be using, what we're going to be using is the video joining, which is up here. Because obviously when we have created 2 files, now obviously you could use anything. You could use any video editor to join these, but I wanted to give you an option for doing it in workflow. It's a good little example, right? So what we've got here is we've got the path to the files. This will be different for you, but it's going to be the same at the end. All right. So you're going to have the path to output, then RotoMaker. RotoMaker Chain 05 is the name of the actual project. So then we go, it's stage 1 and stage 1. And then here is going to be at stage 1, this one stage 1, 2. So it's just the paths for these 2 videos. And the thing is that it's going to be the same every time. It's just going to change the project name. So I may automate that in a later workflow. So it's just going to take it from the, it's just going to fill that in for you anyway. But at the moment, you've got to do it yourself, basically. You've got to set your project name. Every time you go to the next stage, you've got to set your own. So I matched that to the one I'm on, which is chain 5. And then I've got my paths set up, my part 1 and 2. So when I run this, it's just going to make an image batch of the image sequence for each, and then it's just going to output a single video. All right. Now you will lose the audio from this, but you've still got your audio anyway from the original videos and so on and so forth. So it's not really a big deal. You drove this with a video, which you actually have. So you've got the audio separately. You can just put it in later. So this is going to save to RotoMaker stage 1 joined stage 1. So if I now go to the join folder, which will appear once you've run this, now we have, I think I actually did create 2 of these. So I believe it's that one, stage 1, right? So that's your joined video. So now we have our joined video, we can actually go to stage 2. And stage 2 is obviously going to have the path to no, not there, that's load images. So it's this one. This is going to have stage 1 there joined. So there's the path to the joined file, right? And that's going to come into image resize. We're going to keep proportion. And here's the face model, right? We've looked at creating face models before. If you have never done that, it's up here. You can just turn everything off and put some images in, create your face model, and then you can come back down here and you can you can load it then, right? The advantage of this is makes it so much faster, because normally with the face swap model, right, every single time we put an image in with an image, it's going to computationally do the face swap. It's going to build what it thinks the face is and then swap it every time, right? But if we create the face model and then load it, you skip that computational analysis stage, right? Which basically means that it's like 10 times faster, maybe even more. All right. It's hard to tell, but you essentially go from like 20 seconds a frame to 2 seconds a frame. It is literally insane speed. And that's what you want when you're going to be passing like 1,000 frames through here. If you notice, I have no frame load cap, 0. So that means that it's going to process the entire video in one job. So be aware of that. Obviously, I know that in this stage, I made 150 frames twice, and then I joined them to make this. So you've only got 300 frames to play with, okay? So that means I know it's only going to load 300 frames if I just put it on 0. All right. So that's pretty much all you need to do there, right? And what that's going to do, I've actually muted the matting because I didn't want the matting. But if you look at this video here, okay, the face is good. You can actually see some talking, like, you know, he is actually talking. A lot of the mouth movement has been lost, but it is enough that you can work with, all right? If you just look at that casually, wait, I'm in the way. If you just look at that casually, yeah, it does look like a person standing and talking, all right? And we intend to mat out the background anyway, and then use him like a puppet, right? Because this gives us our moving and talking puppets without any Adobe, right? We think in my deep dive live projects, we did all of this with Adobe software and paid software, right? Like through websites. And what this does is basically mean it's all in Comfy now. So anyway, this is an easy one. Once you run this, it does the face swap, and then you have the character which you trained on the moving thing which you've obviously instructed, right? So now we can move on to stage 3. Now, stage 3 comes with a caveat. This should work, and this is how it's working for some people, but it doesn't seem to. If you look at the output, the mouth movement's actually gone. And I don't know exactly why that is. Someone might be able to come up with better settings here to get it to work. I tried with 0, I tried with -20, you know, on the VY. I tried with and without lip targeting. I tried boosting the lip target. I don't know why. It just doesn't seem to follow it. So I'd say this is probably best used for the animation of stills. It's more for like close-ups. So when you do a close-up on a character, you can do a really nice talking scene. I don't think it's really very good for this sort of scene because obviously you can tell it's just not alive. It's just sort of frozen, which isn't very good. And I would basically just do this section here, just do mimic motion, right? And then finally, the last workflow is Roto. So Roto Classic is a pretty cool little workflow. We've already looked at the video joining section, and obviously you can add as many video paths to add as many sections as you want. Just connect them up and then a new node will appear, so you can just keep adding them in. It'll automatically save them in the right place. Just make sure you remember to put your project name in, all right? So, right, so basic operation. If we just disable that for now and take a look at the Rotoscope video side of things, I'm going to turn slow mode off because I just want to do video to video, right? Now I remember why that wasn't in there. There we go. Because this is going to save the final result there. So we do want that. It's going to save it as a section of PNGs. So let's just do that and then that. There we go. I want the GIF generation as well. Yeah. And then we want slow mode. I'm also slowly converting over to this because it's a little bit more compact. I just like the way things look when you've got a bunch of colored things that match. Anyway, so essentially what we're doing here is really cool. So obviously we're going to put in our project name, just like always, right? So it matches and everything's in the same place. It makes it so much easier later. We're then going to put in our video, and this video is from stage 2, not stage 3, because as again, I found that you can pretty much drop live portrait from this. If you don't want to do like a close-up, then live portrait is better, right? And I would just take the last frame of your animation so you can have your walk on and then generate the animation with one of the frames, you see. Anyway, this is why I give you the option of saving the frames, because you might want to grab the last frame manually or something. Right. So if I then throw this batch in here. We do our fancy cropping and make sure it's all square. We go into the Bria AI matting, right? That's basically the heart of the workflow. It's this node. It's very, very good at removing backgrounds. Even when you've got like weird stuff in the background that's the same exact color as the person, it does a great job, which is pretty impressive. What I did do was I did mess with grow. You give you a grow mask, which obviously you can just hook up here if you want to use that. We've got a feather mask, which I actually am getting rid of. I never used that. But these two I actually used. I would either just go straight through, right? Or I would use grow mask when I wanted to say I thought the masking was a bit too constrictive. You grow it, you get a little bit of an area around the mask. And then for the threshold, I found that made it not pick up the artifacts in the background as much. So it had the effect of refining. You see the difference between this, you see this here? There's lots of like gray, extra gray bits, right? And a lot of the time you would see like, you would see artifacts, as I say. And when I did the threshold, and I bet you could probably tweak this value to make it even better, it's making this mask a bit more crisp. All right. Because what I want to do is I want to put him into a new scene and use him many, many times. Right. So that's the idea anyway. And then you ultimately get something that looks a little bit like this. So let's just run it now and you can have an idea. This is pretty fast. So I think we'll just put it on 52 because I think I've already run it at 51 and it's just not going to let me have it. It's like Comfy has this feature where if it thinks you've already done it, it won't do it again. It's like, I already did that job. But anywhere around 0.5, I think should be fine. But essentially what it's going to do is it's going to remove some of these bits. And obviously I could just go and clean them up myself, right? And there is still the point of having to take what's finished. So the PNG sequence that I get, I can import that into Premiere. I still do have to do that by hand, but that's because I want to go in and brush out extra bits. And there's currently no way to brush out a few pixels on a few frames. So that's just the way it is. But I could just use this, you know, okay, it's got a few glitches and that, but it's pretty good. You put that down in the bottom right corner of the screen on a loop, make a whole bunch of variations on it, you know? And the thing is that this is all based off of one image, right? I could do a different image. So different image, same animation. And then different face, yeah, different face model. Different, now it's a different character doing the exact same movement. Don't worry about this. Is only good, like I said, if you want to do a close-up where characters are talking to each other. I think that's how you do it here. So you could do like a, you know, like a forward shot, rear shot. So you have like one character sort of in the corner looking at the character who's in close-up, medium close-up. Then you make that talk, and then you'd have like a reverse shot where it's the other character, you know, and this one would be facing. We're going to look at stuff like that in the future. I've already got a whole bunch of stuff in the works. But so from there, we take our finished video, and then if we need to, because we might have had to do them in sections, we join the sections back up, and then we run it through this, and that will give you, like I said, a GIF, which is a preview. It will also give you a video, which is no longer transparent, unfortunately, but it has a gray background, which is easy for matting stuff out by hand. Because obviously that's how you have to go. If you want to go a little bit further, that's what you got to do. And then obviously you have the PNG sequence here, mask controls. So yeah, let's have a look at the edges here. We've still got a little bit of flaring from the swirls, but as you know, it's less than last time from just that 0.1. And I don't know which way is best to go. All I know is 0.5 helped a lot. And so all we're doing is just taking the mask, putting it through a threshold, inverting it, and then applying it to the images we got from the mat. So all we're doing is we're essentially, this is just refining the mask. And there's so many ways. If I go in here and just type mask, There's going to be so many different like nodes that you could probably write an entire channel just on masking. Anyway, so ultimately in the end, we get these. And like I said, this is like a one shot. Okay. All I've done is taken it from start to finish, started with this, used my video input. Okay. Gotten this, taken it into the face swapped it, and you're done. You're really done at this point. Okay. Now you can I would just overdub it. I probably wouldn't bother trying to match the audio because it doesn't actually say every single word and your eye will pick up on that. So I would just overdub it. The other thing is, of course, if you don't make it too big on the screen, all these little artifacts just look like cool effects. They don't, if like example, look, if I just zoom right in, it doesn't look good at all, right? But if I zoom out, if I have the character like about that big on the screen, it's serviceable. Wait a minute. This one isn't. We're looking at the live portrait that failed. See what I mean by how it looks bad because it actually stopped the face, it stopped the mouth from opening? But that's because I was doing an experimental process. In the pack, it's connected up differently and it just uses a still from the end of the animation. And then it just makes the head talk. And I think, as I said, if this was like a larger frame close-up of the person, you're not going to notice so much that their body isn't moving. Certainly with anime, you're definitely not, if you use cartoon style. Photorealism is quite hard to pull off, but I am looking for a kind of glitched out type thing. And I think actually this is the one. And then again, you can just make as many characters as you need to. I'm also going to be doing a trio 0 to go into this, which will obviously, give you something to generate your initial images. So something to generate this guy, you know what I mean? I would have just used trio, SDXL, one of those workflows to make that. So that is pretty much the entire thing. So, new workflow. This is going to be rotoscoping tools. Like I said, it comes with a video joiner. There's going to be a bunch of other stuff added to the pack. RotoMaker is my first multi-stage approach. And you might ask, well, why didn't you just put it all in one workflow? Because I could have done. Well, the reason is that each of these things is using a pretty big model stack. And if you have it all loaded at once, it can actually cook your machine. And when I say cook the machine, I mean the job gets so big that the computer tries to bite off more than it can chew, and then it will overheat before it finishes the final job, right? And it will automatically turn itself off because it just got too hot. Because it's just too much work. It can do it, but unless you've got like, I don't know, water cooling or, basically it eventually you can overheat. And it's the motherboard that gets hot, not the GPU, right? The motherboard overheats. That's another interesting thing. It's CPU temperature through motherboard. You're like, whoa. And it's just purely from the amount of time it's working hard, So ways to resolve that is obviously you just do smaller batches. Okay, don't try to do the entire video in one go. Do it in little bits. Like here, 150 was about the most I could get, but it was comfortably doing 60 at a time. I just found that if I did a bigger batch, it'll look a bit smoother because sometimes if you do 150, then 150, the middle doesn't perfectly match. Now, I find with this glitchy animation, you can't really tell. But you don't really want a glitch every 3 seconds. So by going for 150, it's like a glitch every 5, and you might just blink and not notice it. Or I might be able to edit that out in post. So I think that's pretty much everything. I'm just trying to put things together for you in a reasonable way. So that's pretty much it. We've got all of the workflows. They're all in the pack. Civet was having some problems, so the pack isn't uploaded yet, but by the time you see this, it will be. The pack is very simply just 4 workflows. So we've got Roto, and there, like I said, you've got the stages as well. So you've got stage 1 for doing the initial animation, stage 2 for fixing the face with your character, and that obviously has a face model builder built in. Stage 4 is optional, and I recommend that for close-ups and conversation and stuff. We're going to do some more videos on that in the future. And oh, sorry, stage 4 is rotoscoping. That's the last stage. You don't need to do that if you don't want to. It's the live portrait, which is used for the close-ups. But all of your like walking and talking, any, like fighting, you could try fighting animation. All you got to do is video yourself on a flat angle. Just video yourself on a flat angle with nothing else in front of you or around you, and it will isolate you. Okay? That's my best tip, actually, saying that, for having the matting. Where is it? Not the matting. The mimic motion working best. To get a good guide, get a good clean open pose like this, you really want to have yourself in the center of the screen. If you record yourself, you've got to think it's going to be a square. So you want to be in the middle of the screen. It's going to crop and zoom a little bit, but that's okay, because you actually want to zoom in a bit, get them out and get the face movements good. I think that's pretty much it. The only major deviation with all of these workflows, all of these sort of workflow variants that are in the RotoMaker pack, is they're all running at 30 frames per second. There's no skip N frames here, right? And we don't use any interpolation, okay? I find you get better results from Mimic by just doing the long generation. Do every frame. It chains them together really well. And a lot of people have said to me that they preferred this look over the interpolated look. And to be fair, that's what it's all about. And we can fix the face, right? Now, I do think that there's some research to be done into the proper values for this. I think that there might be some magical settings here, which could make everything a little bit more crisp. I want to experiment with noise org strength, but because of the amount of time it can take to generate video, even on a 4090, I think a good CPU is actually the bottleneck for me, because my CPU is probably about 2 years old now. So it's not the best, but it's good enough. And I think, without going on and on and on and just waffling about PC specs, and I am going to start recommending PC specs soon as well. There's going to be some videos about what gear I use, because a lot of people keep asking. I get DMs about what I'm using to take the video I've got here, which I'm using to drive, what graphics card I'm running, all this sort of stuff. So we're going to do some recommendations on equipment. So with all of that being said, I think that's all I need to tell you. I thought this one would take hours, but the reality is I already did all of that, and I'm just giving you the highlights. So you can now use yourself to make a video driver. You can then get any of your gens. You can throw them in, animate them. You can then make your character model and use that face model to then fix the face of your character. And then you have the option of doing close-up scenes with live portrait. And then you have the option to rotoscope them out if you want to. That's the whole point of the pack, really. But RotoMaker is, it's all part and parcel, because we want to put these in scenes. And I'll be showing you an example of that very soon. But until then, I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.